My name is Dennis Price. I served about 17 years in the Marine Corps, 15 years active duty, Force Recon, Scout Sniper, Ranger, JSOC. I say all this because at one point in my life, it meant so much to me, those titles. Probably the greatest title I ever had was being a father. I joined the Marine Corps about 17 years old. About 16 years ago in Iraq, I was a machine gunner. We were doing a convoy operation from Fallujah to Ramadi, just like we did hundreds of times before. We were coming up through the city of Ramadi, and we were coming up under an underpass through a bridge. Once you go under the bridge, you switch lanes. The first vehicle goes, they do exactly what they're supposed to do. The next vehicle goes. He ran over a IED, and it kicked off what changed my life for the worst. The vehicle in front of me gets decimated, a rocket flies in between me and the vehicle, and then it kicks off this IED initiated ambush. To my left, to the southeast of the city of Ramadi, we started getting shot at, and all we could see was muzzle blast through the city. After watching that moment of my buds just getting destroyed, I was so mad, I was so angry. I wanted to kill every single person there that day. We were trapped on the X for what seemed to be eternity. From there, I struggled through life and walked through life. I feel like I couldn't feel anything but bitter hate, rage. I had two modes. I was either pissed off or super pissed off. And I let that fire within me consume my life. I started trying to replace that hole inside me, in my spirit, with anything that I could fill it with. At the time, it was like since I pushed out God from my life, he was always there. I just thought he had no place in war. Whenever I came back, I would try to get back into religion, back in the church, and it worked for a little bit. I did 7 back-to-back deployments in the Marine Corps, and then I did 6 more in the private military contracting world. I was chasing the high, trying to fulfill what that void left in my soul. I slowly allowed God back into my life. And then I always went back each deployment to pushing him back out. My youngest daughter, she was born with 2 rare diseases, Beckwith-Wiedemann syndrome, BWS. I thought my life was over. I thought the world was crashing down on my shoulders. When I got handed that $1.2 million bill from Amelia's Medical, that was my solution. It was that my family will get $400,000 or $500,000. This was my answer. Like, this was my fault. My family would be better off without me. I eventually let the devil into my head so much that there was no other logical thought in my head. He convinced me, and there was not a solid reason past that to take my own life. At this point, I was in my basement working out and biking for like an hour. I eventually picked up the phone after a couple hours, and I called one of my close buds and friends. In my head, I was like, this is not a false promise. Like, I can't think of one solid reason not to blow my brains out right now. Maybe he can give me one reason. He didn't pick up. I called again. He was out traveling. All else was white noise. I couldn't think of a single reason not to do it. Hour 3 or 4 goes by, and I'm still staring at the gun. One last thought goes through my head, and it's a random statistic I read, and says, if a parent commits suicide, your children then are 10 times more likely to then commit suicide. And I'm sitting there like, wow, I can't believe that's what just randomly popped in my head. So as all these statistics are racing through my head and I have the gun in my hand, I'm like, man, I cannot fake it. I can't hack it one more day to give my kids a better life. I can't even do that one last time. I put the gun down and I go in and I put on Cornerstone TV, which is a church channel, and I'm like, man, I'm so messed up right now. I need help. I go seek help through counseling and everything, and go back to what I know. You know, just like everyone's baseline, just like zeroing a sniper rifle or anything like that. I needed zeroed in life. I had to go back to a baseline, and what is that baseline? It's Christianity. It's the church. I don't care if I have to work every hour of my life. I will pay off this $1.2 million debt. I will figure out a way to do it and give my family the father they deserve. I got out and joined, what used to be called Blackwater, and I started government contracting through different contracts, OGA ones to just various different ones. I was walking down the hallways, and all of a sudden, it felt like I got struck by lightning. And that is the best way I always try to describe it. Every hair on my body was standing up. And that's the first and only time I ever heard the audible voice of God. And he says, you have to go save them. I was like, what? What's going on? And I go down the hall, and I turn on the TV, and I see Afghanistan, Kabul, all about to fall. And this is before it fell. My rebuttal was, what can I do? And the next response was, anything. Within one day, I had a family who had 6 children. I got given a family, I got given a mission, I got given a timeline saying in 6 days, their oldest daughter, who's 14, and their youngest, and their second daughter, who's 11, are gonna be raped and sold off to the Taliban. And with God's power and everything like that, within 24 hours, I owned a 50-acre compound in Alaska. 24 hours after that, I had a 6-man joint special operations team. 24 hours after that, I had a plane, and I had access to go in Afghanistan. On the 5th day, we rescued his family out of Afghanistan. That changed my life. From that moment, immediately rescuing them, I got shifted all of these missions. In 2 weeks, I was able to save 55 Americans out of Afghanistan. What now is formed as Save Our Allies. I got invited for that, and then that's when I met Chad Robichaud, and he heard what I was doing and what I did, and he offered me to go on a 2-man unsupported operation to cross into Afghanistan and save remainder Americans and provide routes out of Afghanistan. I said, well, this is God's calling. 2 weeks later, we went to Afghanistan, we went to Tajikistan, and we eventually was able to save, about 82 American and vetted interpreters out of Afghanistan. I say that all because this is not my story to tell, this is God's story. He used me, a broken man, used my life skill when I convinced myself years ago that I was here as God's war vessel. It was just that slight shift from going from taking lives to saving lives. It changed my life. I now dedicate my life to serving God, serving the Lord, and using my skill set to helping others and serving others. Now I work at Mighty Oaks. I go around and help other veterans. I help them deal with same exact things I am. And I go around the world and just try to help people out, because that's ultimately what we're here for.
Welcome back to the PFC podcast. The views and opinions you are about to hear are the speakers and do not necessarily reflect those of anyone else. Now on to the podcast.
Welcome back to the PFC podcast. This is Dennis, and today I'm with Dennis. How are you doing?
Good. Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's a really strong name you have, by the way.
Only the greatest.
Yes. So we've already kind of seen your testimony beforehand. So what I'd like to jump into is Afghanistan and kind of the fall of Afghanistan and the rescues that you had been in and are associated with. So, like, by that time, you were on the civilian side. And
yes,
like, how on earth is it that you organized this? Because, like, the government wasn't, they were kind of trying, but it was more just like open the floodgates, whoever can fit in, fits in. This was definitely a lot more organized, it seems like, anyway. Like, how on earth did you organize this and pull it off?
Yeah. So I guess I would first off by saying, like, I nor anyone else could have done so without truly, the blessings from God. Like, that's the secret sauce. And as you hear the story, that will be the only conclusion. And I always try to, because I get that question a lot. And I say, I'll say one word. And if that word doesn't, and if you don't understand from that, then you'll never understand. And that's God. Like, so I say that, as you saw in my testimony, when I felt the audible voice of God to go and go save them. And what can I do? Anything, like it says, in scripture, that I can do all things in Christ who strengthens me. So I got given, just like in the military, I got given a mission, I got given a task, I got given a family, and immediately just all focused on, rescuing that family. Boom, boom, boom. The day before, the American dual citizen, his oldest daughters of 14, 11 were supposed to get raped and sold off to the Taliban and forcibly married. On that 6th day, we went and rescued them. One day out, got them 45 minutes before Abbey Gate blew up, and then all things shifted onto us. We were able to save 55 Americans and SIV interpreters in 2 weeks, and that like all assets just flood to us. So I truly say, like how we're able to, and that's through that. And whenever you said like how does the system and everything work, that was on when I created a company called Polaris, so that I could so I would have an LLC, I'd be legally protected. So if I went over there and tried to rescue and someone died, it's a war zone, it's Afghanistan. That could happen. That they didn't come and take my house, they didn't take what was like mine. So so then after that 2 week, and this is kind of fast forward, after 2 weeks and 55 Americans saved, I got nominated and voted on and approved to go to the Senate and Congress and join a committee that was bringing all NGOs, and they wanted to sanction us and see what everyone was doing, what they can do in the future, and they wanted to sanction us as a new entity that was backed by the State Department and the government. And then so I became then the sixth pillar of what is now called Save Our Allies, and that was what I was saying with Tim Kennedy, Chad Robichaux, Sarah Varardo, Nick Palmisano, Joe Roberts, Dan Stinson, and then we all became this new Save Our Allies entity, and we worked with the government to go and to background check, to clear vetted interpreters of SIV interpreters. So all the paperwork we had to immediately scan up, send it to them. You know, if it was, and I don't want to start name dropping organizations that I don't know want out there, but there was a lot of organizations and NGOs who were working with the government, who were vetting real time. Okay, hey, here's the SIV numbers. Here's their passport numbers. Are they in the system? Good. And then we would start manifesting. So there was a process, especially like the ones that I worked and the ones that like with Polaris Group that my company, and then when we went and formed Save Our Allies, the same thing. So there was a massive one, and then as Kabul, Afghanistan closed up, that's when me and Chad Robichaux, that's when I met him, was at when we formed Save Our Allies at DC. He was like, hey, do you want to go on a 2-man unsupported operation behind enemy lines and go save the rest of them? And I said, well, I felt called to serve to God to go do this. And if there's still other people, well, I don't know you, but then my mission's not done. So yes, I'll go. And so like 5 days later, you know, I'd hurry up and Google him like on my flight there. I was like, who is this guy, just in case? And he had the same background as me. So, but we went there and we covered 90 miles of border operations from Tajikistan and the Panjshir River Valley. And we eventually swam across and were able to help out, build intelligence packages and like crossings and all this other stuff to go save more lives. In total, we were able to save. I was able to save 77 Americans in SIVs, but Chad and Save Our Allies were up to like 14,000. And I felt like just I was walking amongst titans, and it was awesome. But then when we brought all these people, like everyone's thinking like, oh, you brought them straight to America, and what was the DoD doing? And you see like, you know, what you mentioned before we hopped on here is like you see people falling out of aircraft, people just shoving people in. Like that's a big, I think, misinformation to offset of the amazing work we were doing. Not we, but like Americans were doing, that people were being manifested, people were being vetted like real time, especially on our behalf, because we didn't take them to America. Joe Robert had a great childhood relationship with the Prince of UAE, and he gave us, I believe it was 2 aircraft, a landing strip, and a humanitarian center that housed 14,000 people. So we took them to the humanitarian center that was actually designed to isolate people during the coronavirus. So we had this massive like city of skyscrapers that we could house people in a closed off location. So they gave us that, they gave us airstrips, and they gave us 2 aircraft, and we were able to save all those people. Now, for Save Our Allies and what we did, we brought them all to there, and it was isolated, and then that's when they got the State Department came, we inputted them into the system, we were able to clear all people, and then still those people, just like Aziz, who we intended to go get, he still didn't come back to America for like 9+ months. And that's when America would get the SIV background checks and everything like that. And they would get a flight and only take those certain people. The rest of them, we had our Save Our Allies staff. They had to go and do brokerage pretty much through different countries. And like, hey, Canada, are you willing to, because every country is allowed a certain amount of refugees each year that they take for humanitarian relief and purposes. So Canada was like, hey, and I'm just throwing out numbers. They're like, hey, we'll take 1,500 skilled workers, but like, carpenters and welders. So they then find them. And then like, Argentina was like, hey, we'll take women and children only, and we'll take 2,000. So then and then all we do is just liaison between the two countries and everything, and that's all. And so, I think, and I don't want to, just because I'm not in Save Our Allies anymore, I'm pretty sure they got almost everyone out. And like I said, I don't want to misspeak just because I haven't been there for a long while, but that was extremely successful. Everyone was vetted and then given a home. Especially, they were able to be free from oppression and saved. So there was a system in place. They were able to be documented, which is awesome because we had a location that was not in America, that the State Department came and it was able to run everyone in the system and now gather anyone who's there, like clear them and see who was there and write paperwork and find out who's the Americans, who's the SIV, who is vetted, who's not vetted. It was awesome. Yeah. It was an amazing time. And like I said before, like it was God's miracle, and I'm just so happy to be a part of it. And the small little one that I did with the rescues and the 77 that I was able to get out, like, man, it changed my life. And just like I said in my testimony, it truly did. Like dedicating my life to combat and the going from taking lives to saving lives, just that 1 degree off. Like God didn't send me all those places to so I could be his war machine. He did it so it would qualify me to swim across Afghanistan, to do a 90-mile border reconnaissance mission on the border of Afghanistan through through Taliban-infested Tajik guards, Chinese soldiers, Russian FSB/KGB guys, like, and it was amazing what we did in His name, in the Lord's name, and so it changed my life, and now I dedicate it to helping others.
No, it's incredible. The entire thing is an incredible story about how things are just falling into place. If we could go back when you were in Afghanistan, so you're not just coming up to a village and like, hey, who wants to leave this place? Like you talk about that vetting pack, like how, like you're getting pictures, you're getting descriptions of like, okay, this is who is an actual vetted interpreter that we were working with.
Yeah, so it actually happened real time. So just like in special operations or anything else like that, find, fix, and finish. Now apply those same principles to beforehand. We are going on, and we're doing, like, instead of doing hits on HVIs, we're going in. We already have target packages of who is vetted well beforehand, and we're going in an isolated position, and we're either ITGing them in, which is initial terminal guidance, and we're leading them to a way, and then we go and pick them up, or making the connection, ITGing them to Kabul, or to a location that one of our guys or us were at, and then we go in, get them, extract them out, and then so all that stuff was done well. So we didn't go to villages like No, like we went in, was like, this guy's at this location, show us the symbol. Just like, if you go to SEER school or any kind of personnel recovery, like, hey, what's the brevity? What's the in distress brevity? All that stuff. All we did was take everything we used in the military, what we all taught, and then we applied it there, and it was wildly successful. So like I said, it was mainly all done up in the backhand. So we went in and just precision. That's why, like I said, our number one mission at Heroes Humanity and Polaris Group is precision personnel rescues. We don't go in and just like Noah's Ark style, like, hey, I have a big boat, who wants to come in?
Right. And it's, from the outside looking in, it could easily be kind of interpreted that way. Somebody else saying, I rescued like 300 people. You get 4 buses, smash them full of as many people that can travel and drive somewhere. Now you get to claim a number. It's definitely a lot more, it's a lot different to say, no, I went to get these people.
Mm.
We traveled, once we recovered them, we had to travel, this distance to get them finally up and out and kind of create that kind of pipeline, if you will, of safety to get them where you needed to go.
No, exactly.
Another thing you mentioned, going from, just taking lives to now saving lives, not just from the aspect of taking from a place of danger to a place of safety, it's kind of the medical aspect of it. So, in your testimony, you don't mention anything about medical training. And now having known that you've now gone through some more medical training, I guess why did that mindset kind of shift? Because it's like the infamous, that could be the infantryman or the weapons guy, they want absolutely nothing to do with medicine. It's all about machinery and war. Why did that mindset shift to where, like, no, I actually need to be able to handle something?
Man, that is such an amazing question. And if you told me 5 or 10 years ago, any of this stuff, I was that guy. I was that machine gunner. I was that sniper, who was like, man, this is what I like to do. I applaud guys who love medical. I just don't hey, I've been through 5 live tissue packages, tons of teachable C stuff. But I was like, I just don't have that love for it like some guys do. And I was like, I wish I did, because the ultimate warfighter is that sniper machine gunner who also is in love with medical, because now he's both. But I just was not struck like that until Afghanistan. When, like I said, when going from taking lives to saving lives, whenever all the missions that I did around the world now and going and doing rescues, dude, a lot of the times you step on the objective, there's butchered up, blown up, chopped up kids, burnt up bodies, all this other stuff. And I've been through live tissue packages out the wazoo. But every once in a while, when I ran into something like a seizure or anything, untrained in the medical aspect, not trauma and casualty care, because I felt very, very comfortable in that. But when someone was allergic, and they were convulsing, what could I do? What if someone needs medication? I didn't know any of that stuff. So then I actually recently, after switching my life to this, was like, dude, I need to start learning this stuff, because wherever I go, I'm not with a platoon. I'm not with a team. It's usually me and maybe one other guy, hopefully 2 other guys, and that's it. So I need to be my own corpsman. I need to be my own 18 Delta SARC PJ, because if I get hit or someone else gets hit, we need to all be individual, SOIDCs, for lack of a better word, or paramedics. So I then, I'm over. So I'm over at a reserve unit now. I was with 3rd Force Recon as a reserve unit, but we just recently helped stand up. I'm one of the plane owners to the very first MARSOC team that just stood up 4 months ago. So there's only 5 or 7 of us now. So when I went over there, when I was just doing some online research of how can I get the most benefit to learn advanced medicine as I can to help save other lives, I ran to a group called Ragged Edge, and they did a special operations EMT course, which you can now carry and push narcotics. It pretty much bridges the gap from a medic to an 18 Delta, and it pretty much is that halfway point where I can aid and assist that SARC, that SOIDC, that 18 Delta PJ. I can aid and assist him and not take over his job, but I can assist, just like a shooter spotter on a sniper. That spotter does not want my job. He wants to learn everything he can from me, but it only makes me a better qualified and enables me to do my job better with him knowing everything I can. And that's kind of what we are. And so I went to that course by from Ragged Edge, learned made very good close friends with Guy Gioli, who's doing amazing things around the world. Just the Ben Shapiro of medicine. That's what I try to say. He's able to stand up and just Ben Shapiro his way through that stuff. And we became really good friends, close friends. And he taught me everything I can. And I just realized, when I went to Soma this year, I had the bare minimum qualifications to enter the door, keep my back against the wall and just listen to what everyone's saying, and just, 2 ears, one mouth, and just absorb everything I can from there. And I go to the advanced cadaver course and just be in a crazy situation where I'm like doing a thoracotomy on a human body and learning all this stuff, and having one surgeon on over here and one doctor over watching and telling me how to sew up the human heart, how to palpate it and to check and then clamp off the aorta. I only have 20, 25 minutes to hopefully sew up a shrapnel wound in the human heart, and then get out of there and unclamp before the person. It was amazing. I love it. And now I just birthed a massive love for medical because of what I've seen in Afghanistan, what I've seen from around the world, and going and helping these people. And like, now I need to have that. And now it just it gave me this burning desire to want to learn everything I can about medicine and truly help other people.
Perfect. No, I can just tell you from originally starting off as just a regular grunt, and having to treat, trauma injured, it's definitely a helpless feeling when you run into a problem and you're like, I have zero idea what to do about this. And that's just where things kind of started off for me. But that's definitely when going through the infantry, going through special forces, what you constantly heard is like, no, that's your job. I do this. I don't want to learn anything about that. And eventually, hopefully not, but it can come back and bite you.
Yeah. No, it definitely can. And you nailed it when you said, Stan. So, and this is not outside the first time that ever happened to me, I was in Israel before the war and everything like that, just visiting. And we came off a ship, and and everyone's sitting there going through the tours in Jerusalem. And some random kid in the military, he just collapsed and started convulsing. And look over and I see a corpsman. I'm like, do something. And I wanted to do something. I just didn't know what to do. And I was like standing there, and I saw a corpsman. I was like, oh, and he held his head shut and head down, and like someone's like, raise his feet, and this guy's convulsing and they're holding his head. And I'm like, man, I felt so hopeless in the moment. I wanted to do something. I just had no clue. And I'm like, man, if he had a missing limb right now, I'll be able to go up there right now. But I didn't know what to, and do that hopelessness. And then it followed up again. I was with my kids at a circus like 2 years ago. And I just came back from a concession stand, and I see this dad carrying his 5-year-old child in his arms, screaming, crying. And this kid is convulsing and spewing out the mouth, and he's just running for help. And I was like, dude, it like that feeling of, it feels like someone's grabbing you and holding you down underwater and drowning you. I'm like, what kid? I was like, I want to do something. I just don't know what to do. And dude, that was 2 years ago or more. And then, like I said, going on the objectives and able to treat trauma, but when it comes to anything else, and I never wanted to feel that way again. And I can't help what I did in the past like that, but I can help now knowing and being better off in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. So, the missions in Afghanistan to the UAE, very successful. But you don't just sit on your butt and bask in your own glory. Ukraine starts to boil over. Tell me about how that experience went.
Yeah, so kind of like we spoke about before the recording is so after Afghan fell and everything like that, probably 9 or 12 months went by, and I was contracting overseas as a sniper at this time, and people were coming up to me and they were like, "Man, what are you gonna do next? What are you gonna do next?" And I'm like, "Dude, I don't know. I think that's it." And I was like, "But I feel there's something out there. There's something big gonna happen. I just don't know what. But I feel like I'm not done, and God's not done with me yet. I would like to. I just there's something going on." And then, like I said, 9, 12 months or something go by, and bam, Ukraine kicks off. Now people are asking me like, "Oh, you're gonna go? You're gonna go?" And I'm like, kind of what we spoke about before, I don't just willy-nilly. I stopped and I prayed on it and meditated on it. It was like, I don't feel the same calling as I did to go in Afghanistan as I do for Ukraine. I would like to, but I just don't feel it. And I like when people are gonna like, are you gonna go? I'm like, I don't know. I got to consult with the boss. Let me pray about it and see if there's any spot for me, or will I just be in the way or anything? Like, is it even my time to go or anything? So, like a week or so go by, and I'm like, no. And then something comes down, like through third party, fourth party, and it comes down that President Zelensky needs. He's tasking out he put out a situation that 3,600 special needs orphans need evac from the eastern front of the war zone getting decimated, and they need evac to the western side and eventually out of there and rescued. And I was like, dude, my youngest daughter has special needs. I was like, and the things I was just doing with rescues, I was like, dude, this is exactly what it was. So like, that's it. Boom. That was that calling to go and help, children, which is always the number one biggest pull on my heart, to find out they were special needs, just like my daughter. Like, that was it. And so I felt like that, with my background, with what happened in Afghanistan, like, this is all preparatory to help those children. Like I said, at the time I owned Polaris Group, that would cover me from there. And I was like, okay, well, it cost me $55,000 to do, to buy equipment, to go all this other stuff like that in Afghan for free. So, okay, Ukraine, with getting, artillery shelled, to getting, airstrikes and SIGINT, to all this other stuff, I was like, it's going to cost me still to do it for free, probably $75,000 in equipment and all this other stuff like that to go get all those people out. And so in the very beginning of the war, people keep forgetting, because of what they see today on the news, that for the first initial contact of the war to like 9 to 12 months, there was not a single dollar allocated to Ukraine, because they were so scared that Russia was a lot more powerful than they were. So there's no funding going to Ukraine at all, no ties back to America. There was no Americans there. There's some humanitarian groups that did worldwide stuff. They were slightly kind of going in and out, but there was zero anything from there. And I was like, okay, well, there's no funding, there's no nothing. I can't get a military or government funding to do this. So I was like, what can I do? And so I went back again, meditated and prayed on it. It was like, man, these kids don't care if it's American. They don't care who pays for the bill. They just need help saved. So as I prayed and meditated on it, and I did some research, I found that nonprofit, you can take money from anywhere in the globe and do the right thing for the right reason, and you can do amazing things. And when you're doing it for free and you don't pay overhead or anything like that, then you're doing amazing things in the name of the Lord and doing it for the right reasons. So I started Heroes for Humanity, and like one of the things I used to say when I created the name was, 20 years of war, America needed a warrior. But now the world needs a hero. It needs people to step up, use your God-given talents. If that's military experience, that's special operations. If that means you're a nurse or a doctor, you have amazing experience that God has given you, and go help others for the right reasons. Like our biggest thing is 100% of all donations go to mission sensors only. I'm the founder and CEO. I don't get paid. I work 4 jobs. I donated my plasma to start this thing and to go and rescue orphans. I donated my plasma twice a week for like almost 9 months to go and do these operations in Ukraine. And I was able to get a doctor, a nurse, a paramedic, an 18 Delta Special Forces medic veteran, and 3 other special operations veterans. And we went and lived in an orphanage in Ukraine, provide medical aid and assistance to those orphans, and did rescue operations out of that as like a base. And it was amazing. And you know what we did it for? Off of $3,600 in t-shirt sales and plasma. And what the Bible calls the widow's mite. It was amazing what we did with that small money to cover all that stuff. And just like Jesus did, he broke the bread and fed the multitude with fish until they were full. With $3,600, we were able to do so much with so little, and it was incredible. And it changed. It was just, and the people I brought, they weren't strong believers. They weren't Christian, like some made whatever. But after that mission, man, when you're going and doing stuff and helping others and for the right reasons and for free to do that and risking your life to help save others, man, there's nothing I could pay you to do that. Like one of my things I always say is like, people are like, oh, well, how much do you pay? Like, is it like Blackwater or like, Triple K or anything? Like $600-700 a day? I'm like, we don't pay anything. Like, you don't pay anything. I'm like, no, but we have a great retirement plan, and that's eternal life in heaven. We do it all for free for the right reasons because that's the right thing to do. And that's what the Lord calls us to do. You know?
Right. No, yes, definitely. So having all your experience in GWAT on the DoD side, and probably on the contracting side as well, going into a place like Ukraine, like during GWAT, man, we were 100 foot tall and bulletproof. There was nobody that was going to really stand in our way, and the entire world knew it. Now going into Ukraine, peer on peer, like this is what modern warfare looks like. Like, how on earth did that hit you?
Man, no words could explain what I'm about to tell you. I kind of told you before the recording, and I'll provide a few pictures that like don't do it justice, but it'll just at least show some of the severity of it. Outside of Fallujah, I've never seen that much carnage of what another human can do to another human, and that was them doing it to us. In Fallujah, that was us doing it to them. But in like Kharkiv and Kyiv, into some of these places, I'll provide you a picture of that. Like, it was just one in the picture is only one massive skyscraper completely detrimented and just demolished and everything like that. And that was just one. The whole cities were just obliterated. Like, we were going through so what I try to explain to people is no one in the world has seen anything like this in Ukraine. It is World War II fought peer to peer and everything like that with modern age technology. We were flying drones, getting drone strikes against us, to seeing them and countering them, to having massive amounts of artillery dropping on you at all times, getting SIGINT pulled on you, to like enemy aircraft. Like, well, that's the last time anyone has had MiGs flying over their head and getting dropped. Like, all of this stuff was wild. And there's nothing I can ever try to explain to someone of like what you said. We were the big guy on campus, and we owned it. And I was fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan. I pray. And every time I tell these stories about this, it gets me either choked up or shivers down my spine, because I've never seen anything like this. 13 deployments and everything, in and out through the military and in contracting world. 13 deployments. I've never seen anything like this. And I say the next chapter in this war will not be written in blood. The pages are going to be soaked, and it's not going to be who wins. It's going to be who takes less casualties. And I'm telling you, it'll make Nagasaki and Hiroshima look like a bedtime story. And it is bad. And like the things we see and the things that were going on, I pray that this is what I hope it happens in my fighting lifetime, because I pray my son and my daughters don't go, because everyone that we know from now in the next 20 years, your kids, it's them and their kids. America, what we know, is going to change, and it's going to happen in our lifetime. It's going to happen in our kids' lifetimes. I have no clue what that looks like. Rather have it happen now so I can do something so they don't, because it's gonna and all this like PC stuff of 70 different gender. Like, man, good. That's what it is. Boom. You are all being drafted. Like, and I would be like, women now are going to be drafted. Like, every fighting soul, just like in Ukraine. Like, if you are 18 to 65, you are not legally allowed to leave the country. And like, there's no sneaking you through. They have everything, and everyone from like 18 to 65 years old who is a fighting age person. You are standing there. You're digging a trench in your own backyard. And that's another thing to tell you. Like, when we were driving through, just through the countryside, I was just amazed by the innovation. Like, hey, I'm from a small town in I live in a small town in Texas right now. How they were doing it in Ukraine, it was astonishing to see the innovation of how they were going to defend their small town. All the males got in there. They chopped down all the trees and just laid it in different roads to canalize that you would have to go through here. And they had sandbags with a machine gun pit. And they had so little people that they actually had a scarecrow, just stuff like that. So when you come far away, you think that there's someone manning it, because sometimes there were, sometimes there weren't. And then they would go and take rebar and they'd weld like jacks, a little like ball that you pick up, the bouncy ball. They welded that stuff to stop armored vehicles and wheeled vehicles going through, and they welded all this other stuff. And it was amazing to see the innovation, what it was just backyard people doing to stop them from invading their own country and their own direct home front. And I was just driving by and just astonished and seeing, like, man, the lessons learned from here, like, what would we do in America? Like, and I was just absorbing all of it. It was just, like I said, no, there, especially from the initial contact to like 9 to 12 months of the war. Like now it's like there's an established front, it's in trenches, and everyone's like, we're going to Ukraine. I'm like, everyone's in Ukraine right now. Like you can go and like you bring your family like, and you'll eat. Like that's a little understatement, but either way, everyone's there. But in the first, like it was not like that.
Yeah. I mean, especially like the culture here in the U.S. With people worrying about stupid things. Like if we were in it, like all of that would change. I promise, like just like that, because you got bigger things to worry about. So I'm a little thankful that that's what people waste their time on, because they don't have other problems going on. But through all that, just madness, like that's the only way I can think of it is madness, because in Afghanistan, you get 3, 4, 5 rockets, the 107s, and you're like, holy crap! Like they pulled out all the stops. You're talking about bombardments that are lasting hours and days. We can't imagine somebody with that kind of supply chain able to sustain that.
Yeah, I was telling you that story the other day. What was it, me and you? When I was in Kharkiv, it was like only a few blocks from the new Russian front, and everything. And when I went in there, it was like the apocalypse style. It was massive, massive city. And when we went in, it was like very eerie. How it happens in my head again, everything was like black and white. This massive city had like no personnel in sight, abandoned cars everywhere, decimated buildings, and it looked like a post-apocalyptic like zombie movie. That's the best way to describe it. As we get into the safe house of like multi-story building, everything like that, we get in, meet the people we're helping, and like through humanitarian stuff. And I get in there, and we sit down, and we get an established place. And all the Soviet bloc countries, they're all built to withstand like airstrikes. They're all concrete buildings. So we go in like a safe house. We go and bed down. It's like super late at night, and we go sleep. We wake up at 3 a.m. to like I think it was like 3 to 5 bombardments of artillery to missile strikes, like right next to our building. It's like boom, boom, boom. This whole thing feels like it's shaking like this. We jump up, toss our body armor on, like some of the people who were like sleeping by the windows outside. I'm like, get in here, like get in the interior walls. Like this thing is going, and then from that moment on, the whole city of Kharkiv was being oppressed. Every minute on the minute for the whole entire day was just one random artillery struck. And then like the gun turns would do like another minute. And it was just to oppress the people of constant barrage of fire. And to see that, it was like the Battle of Britain, just to like oppress the people. It was just to see what it did, like surprising those people, just so strong to keep trying to live their life, and like they're still going to work, they're still operating, and they're just like, well, this is life now. But like, man, to just spin the turret and just like inaccurate fire and just to hit the city to another minute on the minute, boom, 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 and like it was wild. Like where else in the world would you see something like that? And then I said every minute on the minute for 24 hours. Around the evening time, like dinner time or like a lag of the day, it moved eventually to every minute on the 5 minute. And then towards like EEMT, end of evening nautical twilight, it went back to every minute on the minute, and then like shut down like midnight or something like that, and I was just like, what you said, the supply chain to withstand that, to just the oppression of that feel of just, it was real. And then sometimes you're getting bracketed on, and you're just like, okay, hey, it's time to go. Like, boom. But yeah, it was wild to say the least.
Yeah. And then kind of tying it back to the medical side, they're talking about like one of the latest, more recent research things. They're talking about, hey, maybe tourniquets aren't the greatest idea because, people are losing their limbs because of extended tourniquet times. I think they're losing kind of context of where did this guy just come from? He's probably lucky to have a heartbeat, let alone, he may have lost his leg because of an extended tourniquet. Like, he should be happy that he's even on this earth.
Yeah, I feel like that's something we probably got branded, like you said, coming up in the grunts and everything like that. We were just like tourniquet, and like we move on. Like recently learning, through the courses I went to of like crush syndrome to compartment syndrome. Like, I really had no clue about that. So tourniquet conversion is so important. But just like, I would have to agree with you that on the immediate front, tourniquet, boom, and then hopefully through prolonged field care and they're getting evac back. Like, man, you're lucky to be alive, because they're like at sometimes in the siege, like they're like, dude, if you got like more than what medical supplies they have, you're getting triaged and not a category that you want. So like, take my arm. Like I might have gotten shot in the forearm. Like, take it up to here. Like, because they didn't have that. And then those hospitals getting bombed and destroyed, and they have no way out. So that prolonged field care, austere environment care, and like, I didn't know until I went there. Like, those people didn't even know how, like, and I don't want to bulk some, but in the early one, like, who else knows how to do a tourniquet? Like, why would they need to before? Well, now every able body from 18 to 65 needs to understand how to apply a tourniquet and why, and conversion now.
Right. No, absolutely. Just talking to some of the other, student medics there, there's a max period of time that you can have a tourniquet on, but there's no minimum time. So, get to do what you got to do to stop the bleeding, stop the dying process, and then, as soon as you can, now try to reduce it as soon as you can. But getting to that point, being able to triage a casualty movement from, just from the X, my priority is to save this guy's life. Now get to a place of safety where I can get a little more thinking space and just kind of think of the consequences. And if you can move and it takes you 10, 15 minutes to get to a place of safety, you can go ahead and try and convert that tourniquet again. There is no minimum amount of time that the tourniquet has to be in place. There's definitely a maximum time that tourniquet can be in place. So as soon as that's, feasible, go ahead and just try.
No, that's a solid point, especially when you're dealing with mass cas. I've actually never heard, and I think that's extremely wise, because what I'm recently like diving into with mass cas and genocide, like, that if you do stay and you do, like, you now lost your tourniquet, now you're able to return more supplies, because like when people drop them off and they're like, boom, this guy's tourniquet, I got to go back to the front. They don't have that, but now you're able to remain supplies and keep pushing the fight and keep treating more people. So that is a really good perspective. Yeah. And like you said, there's no minimum time, but there is a maximum time.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you were able to do the Ukraine rescue, get the orphanage and those children out, going to the western side of Ukraine, eventually going on to Poland, or I'm sure other countries as well. Was that the only mission that you did in Ukraine?
No. So I did 4 tours or like mini deployments out there, and I was there for the first 9 months. And like, anywhere from humanitarian stuff to just going and preaching the word of God and evangelizing them, or evangelizing with them as a brother in arms with the background like we have, like, hey, those guys need it. So one of the things I saw, after, like, as the war progressed, was like the amount of hopelessness in those soldiers. Like, man, how long can they sustain this fight? They're being obliterated, And at the same time, they're doing such an amazing job, and they're such strong, awesome people. But like, man, that what is one of the casualties of war is boredom, and then is tiredness, and the fog of war kicks in, and like, how long will I have to keep doing this and watching my buddies just get decimated? So like PTSD, hopelessness, depression, anxiety, all that stuff is real hardcore, and they're dealing with it in the trenches right now. Well, they need a soldier to come up who has a background, who has that experience, and be like, hey, brother, I know what you're going through, and I'm here with you right now. And I'm telling you, like, that you need to hold in there, and that there is hope in the future. There is only through Christ. It's like, do we have faith, love, hope, and able to move past this? And you have to have that for your country right now. And you cannot be subjected by the enemy, both in your head and out in the battlefield, because you cannot lose that right now. We have to keep this battle tempo up. Man, Christ is with you guys. And look what you guys are doing right now. Putin said 3 weeks that he'll sweep through Ukraine. 3 weeks. What is it now? It's been it's 2024. Yeah, well past 2 years. What they're doing is amazing, and I think it is the modern. I truly do. I would consider it's like the modern day 300 movie. Like, they were withstanding the Soviet bloc country of the Russian bear, and they were given 3 weeks, they would sweep through them. It's past 2 years.
Yeah. No, what they're doing is incredible. Just considering the meat grinder that the Russians are just throwing bodies at them, and they're just taking from anybody. They don't care. Can you hold a rifle? Close enough. Go to the front.
Yeah.
So you come from that environment, come back to the States, and now you're getting involved with, like you mentioned, precision personnel recovery in other aspects of it. So can you kind of take me through that process? Like, how are you finding, or even knowing about people, then going about finding people?
Yeah, well, man, God is good. He's doing amazing. Once I fully committed and submitted my life to Christ and committed my life to his mission, and realized he's doing amazing things, not in my life, but amazing things in guys like our lives and backgrounds. Like, I came back and was like, dude, you can't tell me enough that, like, God is doing amazing things in all of our lives, and he just needs guys to step up and do the right thing. So as time kind of progressed, I was, and I'll hit the topic. So our primary mission is personnel precision rescues. As I came back to the States and everything like that, I started hearing, and this is well before the movie came out, I started like finding out about being sexually trafficked children, and I was like, I was so blind to it because it was so grotesque for conversation that I was like, anytime someone brought it up, I was like, no, don't even want to hear it. Like, when my wife would bring something up, tell me a story about a kid being kidnapped, I was like, change that right now. I would get so mad and so upset, and that I couldn't hear it. So I was so ignorant in all of that. And the Pizzagate came out and all those other scandals, and Weinstein and all Jeffrey Epstein, came out, and I was like, and I was so upset and like turned to my stomach. I was like, what kind of evils are out there? And as I kept growing in my faith, it's like, God calls us to be his hands and his feet. And that, like, we live in a fallen world with fallen men. And there's people who are going to try to take down the kingdom and try to whatever. And only guys like us who have, and not just us, but like anyone who wants to do the right thing for the right reason. That is why there's so much evil going around. Everyone's sitting down and remaining silent on it. Like, get up and do something. If you know technology, good. Develop OSINT, open source intelligence. If you have a keen or an act or a need, whatever act for medical, if you're a nurse, EMT, anything, step up and do something. If you have a military background, dude, step up and volunteer with these organizations. So I got plugged in. I've been really, really blessed to be plugged in with a lot of NGOs, a lot of nonprofits who were actually doing rescues. And that was it. I met the most amazing people in my life who changed my life, and really just, I thought I was a strong Christian before this. Then being involved in that like church environment of dedicated people who are doing the right things for the right reasons for free, in the name of the Lord, like, and going and rescuing sexually trafficked children. When I saw it in America, I stayed out of America because so much red tape. But then when I started doing it in America with well established concrete, and I cannot preach this enough. If you go out there and do something with your by yourself or anything like that, when there's any veering off of left and right of red tape, you're immediately getting arrested. You're getting arrested for trafficking yourself, and a whole bunch of ridiculous things. So my caution to everyone is don't do it. If you do get involved in an organization, make sure they're very, very vetted organization that always works with the law enforcement, that works with the parents of that person. But either way, so I went with this organization that did all the above. And then when we rescued my first American out of, I was devastated to see like anywhere from 11 to 14 or whatever age girls standing in street corners being forcibly prostituted by pimps and all this, and this is happening in America. And the worst part, when I saw that, it was blocks and blocks of it, just them standing either naked or half naked and all this other stuff. I was like, how is this happening in America? This just doesn't make sense. I don't understand. Where are the police? Where is everyone? And then the worst thing that just ruined me, really just ruined my soul, was it was bumper to bumper traffic for these girls, man. And like I tell people all the time, like, just let me take you to this area of operations. Let me take you to this AO, and it's happening in most major cities. And it's happening all around. If it's underground, if it's right in front of you, if it's well established, wherever it is, like, just let me take you, and you just see this, and you from that moment on, the rest of your life will be dedicated to this mission, and all else is white noise. What we think is important in our life, when we think we're having a bad day, like, man, no one's dying, no one's being, butchered up, chopped up, no one's being, all this other stuff. Like, what? Because you didn't have your latte, because McDonald's messed up your menu. Like, man, we live in such a blessed, awesome world to say that these are our problems. Kind of like what you said, like the fact that we're switching what gender we are. Like, what great problems to have right now. Like, when other people are being genocided by their own nation, get airstruck on. Some of the ones that like we're working with around the world. But yeah, man. We started getting involved in these nonprofits, these NGOs, and working with amazing people and groups that are doing it for the right reasons, and not for the glory for ourselves, but for God. And like, that's what the Lord calls us to do. And I'm gonna like a little bit biblical and just quote, because this is a commandment from the Bible. James 1:27 says, "The religion that our God, our Father, accepts as pure and faultless is to look after the widows and the orphans in their time of distress, and not to succumb to the evils of this world." Man, to look after the widows and the orphans in their time of distress, that's what God calls religion, pure and faultless. What better mission command from our Father to say that, like, that's what he calls us to do, to be his hands and his feet, to look after the widows and the orphans in their time of distress. That's why our world is so messed up. I get it all the time. People say, well, I have a family. Well, I have this and this. It's like, yeah, well, the America and society is not built off the backs of childless men. Wars are not fought by childless men. They say it in The Patriot, but it's facts. Everyone keeps saying, oh, well, you have kids, or you have kids. Like, man, do you think Moses had kids? Do you think anyone in the Bible had kids? They still had to do the right thing for the right reason. That's why our world is so corrupt and so messed up, is people are standing down and they're getting the enemy in their head, and they're getting inside their head saying, you can't do this. You can't do anything. You have to worry about this. If you worry about your own backyard, it takes a village to raise a family. And we are all worried about our own backyard, that our village is corrupt and we are not doing anything about it. So that's why I like I said, I have Heroes for Humanity, which is my nonprofit that helps people all around the world, takes veterans, first responders, nurses, good people, Christian, anything like that, who want to do something for something bigger than themselves and help out. And the biggest one is like humanitarian aid and assistance, medical. Now we bit off hardcore in, and like I said, personnel precision rescues, and just doing the right thing for the right reason, because that's what the Lord calls us to do. Look after the widows and the orphans in their time of distress, and not to succumb to the evil of this world.
Yeah. So, during this mission, right? I think very different than, Afghanistan, very different than Ukraine, and those places you're going somewhere where they want to leave. It's probably pretty easy. This new mission, they may not want to leave, especially if you're thinking like Stockholm syndrome or just fear. Understood, you're not a psychiatrist, but like, what do you do? Like, I've had like one mission in my entire life where I had to go get somebody who's being held, but I've seen it like a million times go badly, where the rescuer, they just come in, just like you're taking down a house, and they just like manhandle this person, and and like you're trying to secure a puck or something, and like it goes badly really quick. So like, what is the right way?
Yeah. So first, I don't know if there's a right way, but there are tons of wrong ways.
Okay.
So you asked me this, like you kind of brought it up when me and you were talking before, and man, I appreciate that question, because no one thinks to ask that. No one thinks about that stuff. But the Stockholm syndrome is so I don't even say bad. It's so beaten into them. It's disgusting, and you see it on movies. You understand. You're like, yeah, Stockholm syndrome, man. Like, it happens. That's why these girls, like, hey, that's why one of the reasons why the recidivism rate is so high too. But like another one is that they can't escape because they feel they can. They feel like they can't escape. They feel like if they do escape, like a lot of people they'll have like pictures of their family, like if you like, and they'll drive by and they'll harass, like they'll tell them like, oh, we'll execute your family, blah blah blah. This is what happens. You're staying here. You're worthless. No one's gonna love you back there. Look what you've done, and and then they pump them full of drugs and do all this other stuff. Horrible, unspeakable things, to say the very least. I'll try to generally gist a few scenarios that happened.
Sure.
That happened on, so I'll try to figure out how to word this. So on one of, so we're working this one case, and we find and locate this little girl, who's being trafficked, and we finally get her, and we locate, we confirm, we call the police. The law enforcement, we always give them the first right of refusal. We have permission from the parents to do all this other stuff. And then we go and locate, and for lack of better words, we have this girl in our arms, and we're there with the law enforcement agents. And he's like, and this girl's, she's scared, like what you said, coming in there, boom. That is the wrong way to do. These girls, they need a loving, nurturing woman to be there for them. They've been brutalized by men, if not their whole lives, then in their very recent future, or in their very recent past. So you are like the enemy to them. So boom, don't even look at them, don't even talk to them, don't do any, like, don't even touch anything like that. Get a interpreter, like a liaison, and someone who's there and show them compassion and love that they haven't seen in Lord knows how long. And then boom, we come in. But anyway, we have this girl, and she's, pretty much in our arms, and we talk to the law enforcement agencies, and he's like, oh, okay, well, if you want to come with me, then let's go. And she looks back, looks at him, looks back at the pimp, looks back at him, and you see like the wheels spin, and you hear about Stockholm syndrome, you hear about how badly they're beaten and how badly they're messed up, and they have like 6 operators surrounding this girl, and and this one little measly pimp guy, this little, and we have a police, a law enforcement agent right there, and it just a few steps to freedom, and she looks back again and turns back and was like, no, I'm gonna stay, and the officer goes and like, hey, I can't do anything. And he goes and he gets in his car and he drives away. we then have to like pretty much hand deliver this girl back to the pimp and that life. And man, that happened 2 separate times, and it crushed my soul. I can't even tell. Like it literally. I've done a lot of things in my life. 13 deployments through, if it's special operations or if it's through the military or contracting or anything like that. Multiple different countries. That was probably the worst top 5 things I've ever done in my life, and I had to do it twice in that recent time. And man, it is a soul crusher and killer. And it sent me down to a very dark spiral that I did not like to be. But like, hey, that is how it is sometimes. And we have to prepare. And that's why I'm so glad you identify that, because guys no one goes in there thinking that. They kind of said like what you said, like burst in there and like, well, I'm going to load up 300 people. And well, first, that's human trafficking. Like, if you don't have the authorization, like I said, red tape to out the wazoo. That's why I never operated in the United States before until I'm doing it with law enforcement officers and then with well vetted, very by the book nonprofits and the NGOs. But like no one prepared me to go see the things I saw when I saw, like, they were like, oh, these girls are staying there from like 11 to 16 years old, or 11 however old, standing there forcibly selling themselves in the street. I'm like, that sounds so horrible. Like, I can't believe that. And then when you go and see it, you're like, it's like you have shell shock. You're just like, my brain is not registering what is happening. And then to see it bumper to bumper traffic, I'm like, my brain cannot comprehend. Like, when you're trying to put reasoning to chaos and insanity, it just does not work. And I just don't understand. Like, where are the police? This isn't like, I just don't understand. Like, and it's a chaotic world, and you're trying to put reason to chaos and insanity. It just doesn't work. So all we can truly help is going in and rescuing and not doing anything illegal, not doing anything premeditated that's going to send you to jail and do like, I'm going to go in there and, slit throats and blah, blah. It's like, well, first you're going to jail. You went there premeditated. You don't have law enforcement officers. You don't have a badge. You don't have any of this stuff. That's dumb. If you focus on doing the right thing and doing it the proper way, like if like me and you went and did a mission, we saved 50 kids. We went in there, burst open, saved a warehouse of 50 kids and blah, blah. And let's say we took down a few bad guys. Like, hey, awesome. We do celebratory chest bumps. And we're like, man, what a great job. This is awesome. And then we get arrested for that. Now we spend 20 years in life. We're like, life well spent, blah, blah. Someone will bust out because we did the right thing. And eventually we'll get a good lawyer. And if you throw all of that stuff away, all that illegal stuff that we tell everyone that, like, we don't even want, get out of here, get away with that mentality. No way. But if you only focus on doing the right thing, the proper legal way and everything like that, and helping for the right reasons, not for gloating, not for any of that stuff, for helping, because in the name of God, like I said in James 1:27, that's what he calls you to do. Use your God-gifted skills and talents to serve the Lord and help those, and only focus on the rescue. Man, you have now, instead of going to jail or anything like that, or maybe a lawsuit or investigation, you now have a lifetime of lives that you could save. Do not succumb to your own desires, and because we know in the Bible it says that our hearts are corrupt. That guys like us, man, we only know how to do one thing. So I had to be mentored and truly forced how to do this, because like we only know one way to deal with this. Like, I just was so blessed to have such an amazing, strong mentor in my life, and actually a few of them who guided me in life, but one specific one who I work with to do this stuff. And he just, he saw light in me, and he just took me under his wing, and he said, and he told the same exact things, like, don't let yourself, because you can't handle your own emotions, don't let yourself do something that will ruin all of this. Focus on the girls, focus on the future, and the more girls who will be saved from that. And that's my biggest advice. That, the red tape, well organized with law enforcement, and it's an amazing mission. And the worst part is, it's the number one largest business in the world. It is the number one largest business in the world, is human trafficking. That means there's another client out there who are the number one largest consumers. So man, there's plenty of missions to go around. There's plenty of good work. And how does it start? It starts by us stepping up to do the right reason. It doesn't pay, but it has a great retirement plan. That's eternal life in heaven, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're kind of pushing up against time. Dennis, do you have any final thoughts, or if people are interested, how do we reach out to Heroes for Humanity?
Yeah, so you could find me on Instagram. We're trying to recently step into the light a lot more. I realize, and I know I'm hated on by now. I'll get hated on, like Tim Kennedy does, for being the silent professional, and like you. Hey, yesterday's stump and preaching the word of God and evangelizing is today's Instagram. It's today's podcast, and God calls us to be fishers of men. I have to go up, and I was trying to stay in the dark before that. But now I'm going to be going on podcasts. I'll be sharing the good news, evangelizing, and telling everyone, how can you make a difference? How can you use the God-given talents of our lives, our backgrounds, first responders, military, special operators, nurses, Christians, good-hearted people who just want to do something. What can you do? Go follow us on Instagram at heroes.for.humanity. And follow and see what you're doing. Reach out to us, because we're in 6 different countries, 2 different states, covering down on natural disasters, from Houston floods to the tornadoes that touched down Tallahassee right now as we speak. And covering missions with 6 different countries. We do it all for free. So please reach out, donate. We like I said, I sell my plasma twice a week to raise money for mission to come up. I work 4 jobs to do it, because I believe that we should do this, because it's a selection in itself. I can't pay you to go and do this stuff. If we only led with our hearts and not with our wallets, that's how we stop the world from being so corrupt. Why am I doing this? We all have a family to feed. I understand that. That's why I work 4 jobs. But it's still, we have to do the right thing, because if we're all worried about our own backyard, that is why our village is so corrupt. So find us on Instagram. Hopefully you'll tag us in it. Keep sharing what we're doing, and I'm going to keep trying to go on different podcasts and share the good news, what God is doing in all of our lives, and even if you're not a believer, that's fine. Do the right thing for the right reasons, because that's what good people do, and that's how we stop the corruption. That's how we stop the trafficking. That's how we stop the ignorance and the crazy wild stuff you see on TV. Don't follow that BS stuff you see on Fox News, CNN, the hatred of Biden versus Trump, scrolling and seeing anger and the divide and what's going on in your cities. Man, we are pushing out good vibe, and because I get the same thing. I get trapped in that. I feel sour, I feel bitter, and then I go on another mission with people who are volunteers in war zones, and all this crazy stuff could potentially widow a wife and orphan kids. They're doing it for the right reasons. You are surrounded by, and some of these guys are like very well off, rich people or millionaire or anything like that, or just nothing. And they're doing it for the right reason. And man, it's a refresh button in life. You're like, I'm surrounded by with just amazing people who are such good, and it gives you a breath of fresh air and hope for humanity. Because why? Because there's heroes out there doing great things, heroes for humanity, not for America, not for anyone else, but for humanity. When we go to heaven, we don't go to Ukrainian heaven, we don't go to American heaven, we don't go to Mexican heaven. We go to heaven, and that's all. So we have to help others.
That's right. Well, Dennis, hey, I really, really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story and giving us some advice.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you for coming on. Please, like I said, help support us. Help not just us. Help other people like Free Burma Rangers. And numerous different ones we'll try to tag in there. But there's amazing people out there who are doing the right thing for the right reasons. So thank you so much for having me come on and able to share my testimony and what God is doing in our lives. Thank you.
That's it for today's podcast. Make sure to go to our website, www.prolongedfieldcare.org. Check out our free downloads and a ton of other helpful information. Grab a bag of our fresh roasted PFC coffee, links in the description below, and stay on the bleeding edge of combat and austere medicine. This is Dennis for the PFC podcast, out.